Hey there, this is Ziggy. I wanted to make a quick tutorial video about Tabletop Simulator and Warcry. I'm one of the people that works on the Warcry tabletop mod, so I've been doing a lot of tutorials, so I figured it might make sense to just make a video instead of walking people through. I'm going to be looking at the side locks. I made like a rudimentary script here, and we're going to do our best to make this not awkward, but it's going to be probably. But firstly, I'd like to say that yeah, I really hope you guys join us online, join the Discord. We have leagues going every month. It's a lot of fun. There's casual play as up to as competitive as you want it to be. We're currently doing preparation for Warhammer Worlds and other tournaments that are coming up. So it's a good time. I highly suggest it. But if you're watching this, you're probably already in the community. But if not, please join us. I'll put a link to the Discord in the description, I guess. I think playing in person is probably the best way to play Warcry. It's just a lot of fun, especially you have to paint your own models and express yourself that way. But Tabletop Simulator has a lot to offer. I think it's a fantastic way to get into the hobby to start, especially because there's no upfront cost requirement. You can play lists and figure out what you like before you drop money down on models. So, and your level of competition should be higher too, because as soon as something comes out, somebody's playing it. And if we don't have the real model skin, we'll have proxies. So plenty of times people have gone in and really figured out lists and fine-tuned it and had some pretty good results in tournaments and such. There's a lot of people that they just don't have a local scene. So Tabletop Simulator allows you to actually play the game, and you get tons of reps in. You get to play internationally. It's we call it Warcry. That's the name of our league, and for a reason. We'd actually like to get some non-English speakers in here too. We thought about doing maybe some translation stuff. For common phrases and such, but that's way later, I guess. The first part's going to be mainly like TTS related. So how TTS works, just the general settings and stuff that you might want to put on. I've suggested settings. You don't have to do these things, of course, but I find these things to be very helpful. All right, so this is the mod here. I'll link this as well in the description. Basically, you just have to subscribe to it in Steam, and then when you load your game, easiest way is just to type right here Warcry, and you can find it. The first thing you need to do, and this is one of the biggest things when people start trying to interact with this checklist, you have to sit down first. That's why I put this big take a seat thing here. So when you're in the white position when you first load, you can click here. The other way to change seats and stuff is to click the name in the upper right, change color. If you're the host, you have options to go as the game master, but everyone else will only have red, blue, or spectator. Spectator cannot move anything around. When you're setting up a game, it's usually best to, well, it depends if people are going to spectate or not, but if you want more people to join and spectate, just make sure you have enough seats for everybody. Only 2 people will really be able to interact with anything. But yeah, so I'm going to sit here. Again, if you don't do this, then you're going to not be able to use a whole lot. The next thing you should probably do is promote your opponent. So to promote someone, and this is so they can load things in to get their warband in and everything. So you click on their name. You don't see it here because I'm the only player. But you have the option to promote. It'll put a little shield next to their name, and then that will allow them to pull in models and things of that nature. I have this disabled, but rewinding is something that you should probably never do. It just is going to break the scripting on a lot of objects when you do it, because the state gets screwed up, I guess. I don't know. I have it disabled. I don't remember how to disable it, but don't Control Z, don't click this button if yours is clickable. So there's a bunch of settings. I'm going to pull some stuff in just to have something to work with here. I'll go over how to load stuff later. So let me think here. Let's just grab my gorgers here to show stuff. Copy them, I guess. All right, so right now we have the models out. What I'm going to do now is there's a bunch of settings I would suggest. When you hover over, you see how this pops up? There's a setting that dictates how quickly that comes up. So this one's under Menu, Configuration, Interface, Miscellaneous. Maybe you have to click it twice. Scroll all the way to the bottom. It's this one here, Component Tooltip Delay. I don't know what the default is, but I changed it to 0.1. You could go to 0 if you want, but I do like a very small delay. That way when I'm moving my mouse around, I don't have a bunch of menus popping up. That's a good one. The other one, this thing here, where you can shoot out these tokens. You go to Options, then Game Keys, and you make your primary X. And that lets you basically, when you hit X, split these out, and they're flippable. There's a few settings for the line that's very important. This is the default you should have it on typically. inch, 2D, auto, edge, no log. There's a context way to measure. When you have your mouse moving around, you hit tab, you get a ping. You hold tab, you get this. And when you let go, it goes away. But if you click, you'll stay in this. So if you get stuck in the measuring tool, you can hit F1 or go back up to grab in the upper left. But if you're on edge, if I hold tab here with it being highlighted and I draw to another model, this should be edge to edge. And it's 2D currently. See, it's still 2D. And if I ever switch this to 3D, that's how you would get the line of sight for like shooting and such. It's just important to switch it back. The easiest way to tell is like if you pick something up, it's already saying 4.5 and I have not moved it. So you know already that's screwed up. So you would want to go back to 2D. That way when you pick up, it's 0. That's the easiest way to tell. When you're moving stuff around, you can hit escape to go back. You don't let go click. If you let go click, it drops. But if you hit escape before you let go, it'll go right back. Q and E rotate. The degree of the rotation is up here. 15 is the lowest. That's usually what you want to use for Warcry, but you can change that if you prefer. I probably should have said this at the beginning, but if you hit question mark, you get this whole thing here, and this is just a good reminder of a lot of stuff. Like there's some things we don't ever use really, but this can be very useful because there's probably a few things like F to flip an object. So if you want to flip something over, these tokens specifically you'll be flipping. If you use a reaction, you spit one out and flip it. So again, X and then F. And we have a button to clean up all the tokens over here, so you can actually just, it doesn't matter. Just boop. What else we got? Oh yeah, pick the camera. If you hold right click, that's how you rotate. You zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. If you click the mouse wheel, it's a toggle. Z does the same thing. M is the magnifying glass. I don't ever use it. Camera presets. So if you right click on a negative space, not clicking on an object, of course, these options for camera. You want to almost pretty much always be in third person. If you go to first, you'll probably be very confused. You just have to switch back. But you can set a picture-in-picture. And what this does for you, the way I use it is I zoom in like how I want it to look. And then you just basically lock it. And then when I zoom away, I can see it. So that way I can see my enemy's roller. Settings on the models, this is probably something you hopefully will never have to deal with, but the models come from very many sources. So sometimes the main one I see is something called measure movement. So if you right-click on these models, you'll notice there's some extra stuff. This is things that we've added in our scripting. And I'll go over this a little later in the Warcry section, but these are mainly like tabletop simulator things. So you want this to be on. That's what dictates when you pick it up and it starts moving, like measuring immediately. So that's usually on by default. Alt zooming, what that does is if you have your cursor over something and you hold Alt, you'll get a zoomed in view, right? And you can actually M-wheel this, you can Q and E, and the reason why it's important is sometimes things are sideways. So I rotate this, but if I go back, it's going to rotate everything, unfortunately. But you can zoom in and read these things. Everything I make is going to be right side up, but there's going to be some things that are older that may be upside down or sideways. But it's good to do this. You can hold Alt. Oh yeah, rolling dice, so I guess that would be something. So if you ever have to roll a die, I just box select it and hit R a few times, and then I click into a negative space to make sure I've let go of it. When you delete stuff, you can hover and hit backspace or delete, but I will warn you that there's plenty of times when people think that they're deleting one thing when we've got other things selected too. I typically don't delete things, and if I do, I just make sure I do a new box selection and then click a negative space afterwards. That way I don't screw something up. Oh, one more thing. When you're moving a piece, there's ways to press it to the ground. Because if you're like going under something, if you hold right click, you can put them to the floor. And that'll let you, like if you're trying to get right in here, like you can get much closer easier by holding right click as you're holding left click. And if you want to drop it, this is kind of minutia, but don't let go of right click, just let go of left and it'll drop it. And then you can let go right afterwards. So that's the main stuff for TTS. So the way you load your warband is, again, you have to be seated, right? And if you look at this checklist, it's down here. You see where my, so if I wanted to, if I'm playing like Soulsworn, for instance, I click order. It pops the bag out. And at this point, you can even search in this bag if you want. But you could also just do this to pop out the proper quester. All right, and then when you peel the guys out, first thing you'll usually find are their cards. but you can pull these guys out. Now, the thing to know is when you pull them out, it is actually important to pull them like this. There's something that happens when you pull from a bag. So sometimes you'll get stuff like here. I'll make a copy of this guy, and let's see if he has like 1 HP. No, he actually copied correctly. Oh yeah, but this guy didn't, right? So this guy, for some reason, when I copied him, he did not have the HP. When this happens, there's also, if you look, see how the aura has a thing around the side? That's how you can tell that this is correct. So the way these auras work, if you hover over and hit 1, it'll draw a 1-inch aura, and you see this is 1 inch measured. 2, you can even do double digits, like 12, right? And then if you want to turn it off, you hit 0. Well, this guy has an aura. It's just tiny because he's too big. The aura's not big enough, or the base size rather. If you click here, you can see he's currently set to 0, 0 with 1 HP. One way to fix it. If I were to just take him and put him into any bag, and pull him out, he'll be right. See how he's got the aura now? But if I needed to fix him manually, I could click this until it's the right size. You can tell because all of a sudden it pops up. It should be pretty easy. And then you can actually change this. Well, 35, but that's one way to fix. And then to bring this menu up and down, by the way, I didn't mention this, you can click in the middle, or you can right click and it's the advanced panel. As soon as you touch a model that's loaded in, it registers to your color. At least it should. If you save them, sometimes it'll get messed up. But if you need to switch it, if you right click, there's a swap. Because they do become registered, they won't change after that point unless you do this. So let's say you've got your warband out now. You can drag select them. It's better to put them in a bag. I have this fixing bag, which explains the process of if something's messed up. But if you were to like take these, pop them in here, right click, save object. All right. So now this is saved. So when you go into your saved objects, so objects, saved objects, right here. If you've got blessings, you can use these player aids we have. Move all this stuff out of the way. These are clones, so you can actually just delete them if you want. The only thing wrong on this is we have the old rampage rules in here. Okay, so to make your terrain, I just hit generate because I know it'll spit something out. I just needed something for an example here. But there's actually 2 different ways. So if you're playing like a normal mission, like a random, you just go random. Select your terrain. If you want to randomize the terrain, you can roll this die here. 5, Sundered Fate. All right, and then once you have this, you actually can just hit generate. It'll automatically clear this, dropping new stuff. So here's the random mission and map. So basically, you know, you have your warband set up. You can stage them back here. And then you can see the deployment symbols are on here. So if they're round 2, they'd even have a little round 2 symbol. In fact, let me see if we can find one with a round 2. Yeah, see? If you're doing a tournament mission, you can select, I think you can just do terrain here. Let me see if this works. Yeah, and then you can use these things over here. Now, we have a bunch of old ones. These are just our league missions and stuff. But as an example, we can just pull this one out and use it place. And it places all the relevant stuff onto the map. If you want to pull it back, obviously hit recall. But once things are out here, you can lower the deployments. Now, one thing about this, when it's lowered, if you were to if you lower it and then place terrain, you won't be able to lower it again because it's already lowered, considered lowered. It always places at the same height, so like it'll raise up higher. But all you do is you raise it up and you just recall and replace it again, and then you'll be able to lower it. So again, the alt thing is good because you can just look at it. And these bags are, there'll always be some in here. We'll have whatever we're doing currently out, but you don't necessarily have to interact with this stuff if you don't want to. If anything fails to load here, like if the terrain doesn't load or this stuff fails, just do it again. So you can pick up this card, automatically clears, then drop it. I usually give it a second. There are times when people have to do this more than once, but usually it's not a big deal. There's something we have in here right now that doesn't it's not always going to work. It'll break at some point. But if you notice, I'm blue player, and I just click tab on this guy. And then at some point, I tabbed this guy to talk about him earlier, the one that doesn't have a spear. If you look over here, these cards are context sensitive. Now, I hope we can fix these where they don't break, but if you look, it shows the stats for the guy you clicked on. That's your guy, is on the left, and the opponent is on the right. It should be on both sides. Like, my pings don't affect this. Whoever's in the red seat will have the same thing going on if it's working. The other thing, this dashboard, again, you have to be seated. A lot of people say nothing's generating. It's because they're not seated. So you can hit hide. You can get it back by hitting here. We've got a timer. It's like a chess timer. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody use it, but it's here just in case. We've got, you know, the players up here. When you roll for your initiation, you click here, and that's what kicks off this bottom thing. So it's pregame right now. As soon as you click this, it'll show who has initiative. Wild dice. This is a bag. So you just pull out of it. When you do initiation over here, just make sure you click yours. Rolls your 6 dice and auto groups it for you. The only time is when it won't like pull things over is if you get more than 5. Like, so if I were to get 5 singles or 6 singles, it would leave 2 behind. If you were to get like a 5 pairing or 6 pairing, same thing. It'll leave them over here. So you just have to move them manually. When you roll again, the only thing it clears is the blue dice. So like if I click it again, oh, it rolled these because I had them highlighted. So I can make this into a quad. And the way you do it is when you're hovering over a dice, you can hit like 1, it'll change, 2, you know, etc. Same thing for the roller. So this die, whatever's in the middle is what will roll around it, and the die doesn't have anything. It's just a regular die. But you put what you're hitting on. So if you're hitting on 3s, type 3. You're hitting on 5s. What that does is it only really colors the dice. So we do a huge roll on 4s. Right? So it just colors them based on if they hit or not. So if you mess this up, if you were actually supposed to be on 3s, then you just count the 3s as hits. Because we're playing in TTS, we do tend to have people roll quicker than they should. You should always like make sure your opponent has the option to retaliate or react, I guess is the correct word. So be mindful of fast rolling. If you fast roll, you should make sure your opponent is cool with that. So when we do our scoring, we put our missions notes here. I'm going to talk about the movement tool real quick. Something I didn't think was ready, but a lot of people are using it. So I've done some improvements to it as well. So these little blue things here, if you click on one and you click on a model, actually you click the model first, I'm sorry, and then you click on this thing, it'll draw a line like this. If you scale it up, you can make it match. See how you have to, it's like barely peeking out. Like this would be correct right here, this size. As you can see, it's like basically matching the the blue around. So what that does for you is allows you to be really like careful about your movement. So like I want to be 4 inches, or I want to go around this corner as best I can. So I'm going to go like, 3 inches here. And then what you can do here is you can hit swap. So it tells you height as well. So it's important that you have the piece actually down on, where you're trying to go first, right? So, and then it does a combination. So climb, move. So this would be like a move. But what you can do is just hit swap. And you can leave it here too. This is almost like an undo. If you leave it around, you can always swap back. But you swap, and then when you're done with it, you can just pull it off, and you can say inline. You can keep it around. It's already sized to this guy's base, so you can just, when you want to use it again, you just click the guy. One other way to use this thing is I like using it for several moves. So let's say let's say I'm doing a dash, right? So I've got 5 inches of movement. So I swap, and then I pick it up again, and do another 5. Swap. Move it off, inline. So there's a couple things you can do with auras. So let's say this guy, he has a 1-inch attack range, and you want to move close, right? I want to get in here, but I don't want to get into his activation or into his threat range. So you can go like this. You see 1.1. It's almost like the inside of this is the actual area. So like if I'm like this. That should be close enough, but this maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, see? So you have to, I would still measure. And the weird thing is too, measuring one way and then the other way sometimes yields different results. So it might make sense to, because we're in Tabletop Simulator, I don't get too crazy with the like sub-millimeter accuracy or whatever. I just make sure like, hey, I'm moving here. I should not be engaged. And I always measure both ways anyway, but it's good to just, you know, if they measure and say, whoa, you're within one, you can explain this whole thing if it comes up to that, or say, hey man, I'm sorry, when I moved there I said I was out of your range. I meant to be. And most people shouldn't really hassle you about that, I would hope. And one thing that can happen is the rollers can break, or if someone rewinds, the rollers won't clear. Like these dice, next time you roll, they won't clear, so they'll stack. If anything happens weird like that, the rolls are always captured in the log. So if this gets totally screwed up, it doesn't matter. You just can replicate it here. Let's see, there's some fun stuff we got too. In here, that's where we got like weather effects and stuff. So I'm gonna turn on all the weather, turn on a few things that I think look cool. Increase the lighting a little bit. These have a second state, which lights them up. So you can get some pretty thematic games going here. All the models tend to, like this one's freaking out a little bit. I'm going to lock it so it stops moving around, but I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff in here that we don't use yet. Like you can actually change the color of the lighting very easily. And then we got these presets too. We had snow on the Christmas one. Change it mostly back to default here. The other thing too, this is a little hard to use, but this TV over here, at least I call it a TV, you have these little buttons where you can bring up rules and stuff. I'm going to change this, I think, because this is just not in the best format for using a Tabletop Simulator. So I'm going to change this probably to a little cheat sheet I found. Just a single page. But we'll see. Well, we'll see how this went. I'm going to stop the recording. About 30 minutes, huh? Okay.